Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over some of my favorite plays for tonight's 4-game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings. Not the biggest slate in the world, but it is a fun slate. We got James Harden, Luka, Westbrook, D'Angelo Russell, Ingram, Porzingis, those kind of guys. So I am looking forward to it, but everyone's going to be pretty high owned because it's only a 4-game slate and there's not a lot of places to go to. So just be prepared for that. Like Luka's probably going to be, extreme chalk. But I am looking forward to this slate. So anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPinell16. I'll retweet some news on there, make some bad and somewhat funny tweets once in a while. And then, if you're interested in the spreadsheets I build every single night, links in the description below for my Patreon. And I also do NFL every single week and NASCAR. So if you're interested, links down there. And I think that's about it. So I say we get right into the video. And let me just start off by saying, yeah, I like James Harden. I'm not really going to talk about him too much in this video because he's not a core play for me just because of the price tag, 11,800. But I mean, the guy's been great and he's finally starting to hit his shots. And like I said at the beginning of the season, once he starts hitting his threes, it's game over for faders. Well, I said that when he was a lot cheaper. You can get away with it now because he's all the way up to 11,800. Back when I was saying that, he was, 9,700, 10,200, 10,1, 10,1. Price is all the way up now at 11-2, but he's been in his threes. He had 7 threes versus Memphis, 6 threes versus Golden State, and he has back-to-back 73, 74-point outings, and he's just been incredible. The game versus Memphis was without Russell Westbrook, though. Keep wanting to say Russell versus Russell Westbrook. But, I mean, still, he has been fantastic. He's starting to hit his shots, and when he's hitting his shots, it's scary because James Harden can go nuclear in a blink of an eye. So James Harden, yeah, if you want to spend 11,800 for him, I think he's okay. I mean, it should be a pretty back and forth game. It's one of the highest, if not the highest Vegas total on the slate. The Rockets have the highest implied team total. So if you want to play James Harden, I think he might go just a little bit lower owned just because of the slate. It's a 4-gamer. I think everyone's going to plug in Luka. I think everyone's going to go towards D'Angelo Russell. So I'm not saying he's going to be low owned, but just between the 4 studs, he might go a little bit lower owned than maybe he should if we're not able to fit in 3 studs, because I think everyone's going to shift towards Luka and D'Angelo Russell first, and it might be a little bit hard to fit in James Harden unless we get some value options that open up throughout the day, because as of right now, we don't have a ton of value options. But if you can fit in James Harden on the slate, I think you should, because he's got the highest ceiling. I know Luka's right up there with him, but the James Harden ceiling is like 80 points, and I mean, the guy can just completely break a slate. So James Harden, yeah, I think he's fine. But the first person I'm plugging into my lineups is going to be Luka here at 9,600. So I love James Harden, like I said, but when you can save over 2K in salary for someone with similar upside than Luka, I'm going to take that every single night. He's fresh off his 4th triple-double this season, where he put up 38 points, 14 rebounds, and 10 assists, which led to a 72 fantasy point outing versus the Knicks. He's just a stud. And this is also a great matchup versus Memphis, who's been really, really bad versus opposing guards. They're 23rd versus point guards and 28th versus shooting guards. And the guy's huge for a point guard, or whatever you want to call him. He's the main ball main ball handler here. So, I mean, you got to like Luka here. Memphis is also top 5 in pace of play. It just really doesn't play defense whatsoever. This is a perfect spot for him. He earns a 31% usage rate, 1.52 fantasy points per minute on the season, which is incredible. He's not all the way up there to James Harden. I believe James Harden's at 1.6 right now, but still, Luka's been fine. He's also 2,000 cheaper, and he's going to be the first one I'm plugging into my lineups tonight. He's pretty affordable. You're not going to have any troubles fitting in Luka. I've already tried to play around with lineups, and he's very easy to fit in. So he's the first guy I'm plugging in, and I'd expect him to be extremely high owned tonight. Russell Westbrook, just like I said with James Harden, although he's been pretty cold the past 2 games versus Miami, Houston just sucked versus Miami. I don't know what was going on there. Only played 26 minutes. They got blown out. Only scored 25 fantasy points. Then last game versus Golden State, took a backseat to James Harden for sure. Saw 30 minutes. Only 40 fantasy points. I mean, the numbers were okay. 18 points, 18 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals. But, I mean, from the beginning of the season, that's nothing that we've been used to versus Milwaukee. Versus Milwaukee. Let me make sure you can still see his name. 1 second. Okay, yeah. So versus Milwaukee, he had 65 fantasy points. OKC, he had 50, 56, 57. And past 2 games, after he had that rest day versus Memphis. But yeah, past 2 games have not been great. But he's been very good on the court this season. He's been right up there with James Harden in points per minute. His usage rate obviously has taken a hit, but I think he's fine at 9,000. He's obviously pretty much almost 3K cheaper, 2.8K. So I like the value you get with Russell Westbrook over James Harden. He's going to be easier to fit in. So if you want to go with this 3-stud approach tonight, I think Westbrook. I have such a hard time saying Russell Westbrook. Westbrook, Doncic, and D'Angelo Russell. I think that should probably be easily doable. So if you want to go with that route, I think that's fine. So Russell Westbrook, he is in play for me. I like the discount you get off of him with James Harden. I just don't think the ceiling is up there with James Harden for sure, but you also get a big discount, so that's baked in as well. So Westbrook, I think he's fine. D'Angelo Russell, though, I like a lot at 8,500. And it feels like I'm point chasing here, but I promise I'm not. He's the only guy on the team at this point, and he's going to have to shoulder a heavy load for them to stay in games. Past 2 games he's played, his usage rate has been over 40%, which it was in the mid-20s beforehand. And seriously, though, that game he had last night was absolutely amazing. He had 82 fantasy points, 52 real-life points. Pretty insane. The game did go in overtime, but still, he was balling out even if it didn't go into overtime. And it's not like OKC is the greatest matchup in the world, but the ball's going to be in his hands the whole game pretty much, and he's going to put up a bunch of shots, and we know his upside on offense, which we saw last night. I still think he's at a fair price too of 8,500. It's easily affordable on this slate. So I'm starting with Russell and Luka tonight, and then you could probably fit in Russell Westbrook after that. And if you could fit in James Harden, I'm not saying you're going to be able to fit in all 4, but if you can get 3 of those 4 guys in your lineups tonight, I think that might be the way to go, or at least try to. But at the very least, I think you should have 2. And then some mid-range options here. Not a ton of options I like, but I'm going to stay in this Houston game. I like Clint Capella at 7,400 going up against the Chicago Cubs, the Chicago Bulls. He's been pretty hit or miss this season, but he's in a dream spot versus Chicago. They're bottom 5 versus centers, and big men just continue to dominate these guys down low. They're the worst rebounding team in the league, and we've seen some big men have some huge games versus them so far, and Capella provides some upside here for us. He's had some bad games this season, but he's also shown upside, like last game and in a good matchup versus Golden State, who was also awful versus big men. He had 57 fantasy points. Now, he's not going to get 6 blocks every night like he did that game, but he should still get his double-double and push for 30 minutes here, and he's at a 1.1 points per minute so far this season. And if he can push for 30 minutes, and it's a great matchup, I think we can hit 40 fantasy points here with upside of more, like we saw last game where he had 57, and I believe earlier in the season he had a pretty good game versus Washington. It was another good matchup. He had 47 fantasy points, so the upside's there, and Houston has the highest total on the slate, so I want pieces of it, and he doesn't totally break the bank. So Clint Capella, he's in play for me. I don't think he's going to get 57 fantasy points, but I do think he can get you over 40, which is fine at 7,400. I think he might carry some ownership as well. And because we don't have like a stud center tonight. Whoops. Yeah, so we don't have like a stud center tonight. So it's not like everyone's paying up for Karl-Anthony Towns. We're not all paying up for Drummond. So the highest price center is going to be Porzingis, and he's power forward eligible as well. So the first guy that's actually popping up is Capella. So I could see him having some ownership for sure. Same game, Zach LaVine at 7,300, right behind Capella in terms of salary. I think he's a fine GPP option. Someone I'm maybe looking to plug in cash games, but if you're stacking up the Houston game, I think LaVine would be a tremendous play on the other side of Houston here. Houston is one of the worst defensive teams in the league, allowing the most points per game to shooting guards, small forwards, and power forwards. That's yikes for them. They also play at a really fast pace, so this leads to a lot of fantasy points to be scored. First place I'll look here for the Bulls is LaVine, and he's got the most upside on the team. He owns a 28% usage rate and is seeing 32 minutes per game and a 1.1 points per minute rating. He's mainly been in the 30s for points scored per game, but we've also seen some ceiling type games versus Memphis, which is nearly the same matchup here. They're both pretty bad versus opposing guards, played at a pretty fast pace. So I'm not saying he's gonna get 60 fantasy points like he did versus Memphis, which I probably show that game log. It was the second game of the season versus Memphis. He had 33 minutes, ended up putting up 37 real life points, and he had a pretty good game, 59 fantasy points. So I'm not saying he's gonna do that again, but I think we can see something close to it. And plus, Otto Porter is out, so there's more of a reason for him, for the team to lean on LaVine here. So I think he's a pretty interesting GPP option. Probably not someone I want to plug in for cash games. I mean, if he fits in cash games, I think he's going to be okay, but more of a GPP play for me. And then one more mid-range guy, we have Terry Rozier at 7,000. Scary Terry. And let me tell you, he was very scary for our lineups last game versus his old team Boston. Like, he was awful. He didn't even reach double-digit fantasy points, and he got 1 field goal. He was, 1 for 11? Yeah, 1 for 11, shot 0.091%, 9.75 fantasy points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 points. It was awful. But I think he bounces back here at lower ownership versus a fast-paced New Orleans squad who's playing third fastest this year, and they're 29th versus opposing point guards. I know it hurts to go back to someone who hurt you the night or two prior, but he's worth a shot in GPP. Should be at lower ownership compared to most guys on this slate, and it's a good matchup. So, and otherwise than that, he's been pretty solid this season. 36, 35, 46, 26, which is, that's a little rough, but 34, 30. I know his price has come up a little bit at 7,000, but I think he's a fine GPP mid-range option. And then for some value guys, because we're definitely going to need some value, I got three for you right now. Hopefully some more open up because I'm not in love with any of these guys, but I do like Chandler Hutchinson at 3,200. So it's gross, but he's dirt cheap, and he's going to draw the start and play supporter. So I think he's the most obvious place to look to save money tonight. The first 2 games he's seen 15 to 19 minutes, and I'd expect him to push for 25 minutes tonight. Like I said, it's a great fast-paced matchup versus Houston. They're dead last versus guards and forwards, giving up the most points per game to them. So at this price, he should be fine. He's going to let us fit in our studs. He's not a huge points per minute guy whatsoever, but he should be fine if he gets 25 minutes. And at 3,200, he's going to probably be pretty popular as the value guy in the slate, and it's my favorite game of the night. So he makes some sense tonight. And then another guy I don't mind is Malik Monk at, I think he's 3,400. Yeah, Malik Monk. So this is the other game I like a lot for fantasy. Not saying I love Malik Monk, but he's not safe by any means, but the matchup is great versus the fast-paced New Orleans squad. Like I said, who doesn't like playing defense? He sees roughly 18.5 minutes per game, and he's at 0.7 points per minute, which isn't great at all, but I think he's a decent shot of getting over 20 points here. Not real-life points, but fantasy points, and he's had some upside games. 6 versus Boston, that sucks. They're a tougher defensive team. Indy, 13 points, a little bit tougher. Some easier matchups here. Golden State, 15.75. Sacramento, we got 27, 18 points off the bench. Then versus the Clippers, 20 points, 15 real-life points. And some rough games. So he's a riskier play, but he's cheap. It's going to be a fast-paced game. New Orleans doesn't play defense. I think he's fine at 3,400. And again, we don't have a lot of value options, so hopefully something else opens up throughout the day. But Monk and Hutchinson are looking okay for me right now. Then one more guy here. We have Willie Cauley-Stein at 3,900. Let me just search his name. Okay. So, he's only averaging 17 minutes per game so far, but I got him for about 24 minutes tonight, and he's sitting at 1.08 points per minute on the season. So I think he's got a decent shot of hitting value here versus an Oklahoma City squad who's 21st versus opposing centers, and he's not been great, but he's not been awful, and his prices came down a lot. He was 4,400, 4,800 before that. Now he's all the way down to 3,900, so he doesn't really need to do much hit value here. He's got upside. He's only going to see probably about 25 minutes, but 21, 12, that sucks. 20, 25, 20, 14, 21, but thing is, his prices come down about 1,000 here at 3,900, so I think he's going to be fine. He should be able to get you over 20 fantasy points, and I think he makes some sense. So I don't mind Willie Cauley-Stein, and that's pretty much all I got for the video, guys. There's not a lot of plays to go over, so I'm going to leave you guys with that. I'll see you guys in the next video. I wish you guys the best of luck. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. Spreadsheets, link in the description below. Yeah, that's going to be it. I wish you guys the best of luck, and if you're playing NFL, check out the NFL videos. I'm going to make an NFL lineup building video probably within the next couple hours, so that'll be out. And yeah, I'll see you then. So best of luck.